Hey everybody, how's it going? I'm in the middle of a great discovery right now. I found a way to take two separate bits of gaming hardware and put them together, so that way I can make one big thing. This is set to be the most impressive display of gaming technology ever. I present to you the Nintendo Switch inside the dock. I know, right? It's wild. You take two things that on their own are kind of meh and not really that interesting, but when you put them together, it suddenly makes one cool thing that everyone just loves. This is set to be such a massive leap forward that I can in no way ever see this backfiring. Well, it didn't quite backfire. So Sonic CD was a modest hit, but it still sold far below both of its predecessors. While it wasn't the game's fault for the poor sales since it was on a relatively failing console, Sega wanted to shift focus back to making the next true sequel in the Sonic series, and that meant all hands on deck as Yuji Naka would return to Sega of Japan to work on the next entry in the series after going through some communication issues while working on Sonic 2. Sonic 3 had begun development with one common goal in mind: to make this the biggest Sonic game yet, the magnum opus of the series. Mission accomplished, I guess. That passion put a lot of faith in the game by Sega, as the marketing for this game was the most intense it had been for a Sonic game so far. Commercials got more production value, a surplus of merchandise at the ready, and even a televised world premiere in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, only 91 miles away, and I could have been born in the promised land. Sonic 3 was building up to be one of the biggest hits that Sega had to offer. I mean, the hype for this game was insane, considering how much marketing and push and PR and all that other bullshit was behind it. Like, this had to have been a runaway success!
I think we should tell him later.
1 million copies? I mean, that's certainly nothing to scoff at, but compared to the first two games, that's surprisingly lower than anticipated. When looking at the big picture, I think there are two reasons as to why it didn't sell as well as the other games. The first is, by this point, I think people were getting a little burnt out by the series. Now, I know that sounds ridiculous, it was only the third game in the series. Well, in spirit, yes. Within the span of 3 months, there were 4 Sonic games released, including Sonic 3. Sonic CD, Spinball, and Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine were all released in November of 1993. That is absurd to me. Now, I'll give Sonic CD some leeway as it was on a completely separate console, but Spinball and Mean Bean Machine have no excuse. It just baffles me that 2 spin-off games, one of which had nothing to do with Sonic outside the branding, were released so close to launch of the next mainline game in the series. But the other reason I think it didn't do as well is because, well, it wasn't the whole game. The game only had 6 levels in total, once again following the 2-act rule. This is less than Sonic 2 when considering how it only follows 2 acts. It's even less than Sonic 1. I think many people who bought it thought it was just so much of a lesser experience by comparison. While it was still enjoyed and received well, many felt it was incomplete, as if it was only half of the total experience. Oh, yeah, so about 7 months later, there would be another Sonic game released titled Sonic & Knuckles, which also sold about 1 million copies despite all of these selling.
You need to be checked.
Upon playing the game, people noticed how it looked extremely similar to Sonic 3. The graphics, the character designs, and even the title screen having the pseudo 3D sprites for Sonic. And then we get to see the game's true colors start to show, as when you look at the top of the cartridge, there appears to be a slot that could fit other Genesis games. Put Sonic 3 on there and we have ourselves a subtitle. Oh, yeah! And that's when people finally realized this was Sonic 3 in its complete form. 14 zones to play, new cutscenes and music, and a healthy selection of new and exclusive features in the game that can only be accessed by linking the 2 games together. So finally, you have the complete package.
Well, that was easy. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that the whole lock-on thing is what made it harder for consumers to get the urge to buy both, as it was probably just seen as 2 separate games that didn't really have much to do with each other. So the consumer was most likely to just buy one or the other. The casual gamer didn't really see anything that special with this. I mean, it is still a really weird concept, but years later, to many Sonic fans,
they just don't understand.
Oh man, this is easily one of the most loved games in the series. Fans love everything about this game. The levels, the music, the playable characters. This game for many felt so massive and epic compared to the first two, which on its own is kind of impressive considering how big those games could get. I've always thought fondly of it over the years, but I haven't fully played the game since I was 16, the ideal age to be making opinions.
I'm shutting the Game Boy Zero.
I feel I owe it to this game to give it another go-round, now with a more open and logical mindset.
It's pretty.
Oh hell yeah, I love Sonic 3, Sonic the Hedgehog, and Knuckles.
Just rolls right off the tongue.
Going into the game, we are actually greeted by a menu that lets us save our progress.
You could do that this whole time?!
Sonic and Tails are flying to this mysterious island called Angel Island when they are suddenly attacked by new character Knuckles the Echidna. Nice dreads, they looking fresh. He steals the Chaos Emeralds from us as we quickly find out he's working with Robotnik. Yeah, Knuckles is both a little stupid and also pretty gullible, which makes it easy for Robotnik to trick him into attacking Sonic and help him with his evil plans. The plot kinda takes a back seat as we go through each zone chasing Robotnik and fall into a couple traps set by Knuckles. That is, until we reach the halfway point when we discover that Knuckles is protecting this secret shrine that holds all these different emeralds. I like this, it adds a bit more depth to Knuckles as this is where we find out that he's not just one of Robotnik's lackeys, but rather is trying to protect the Master Emerald. One big emerald that, well, we don't really know what it does, but we get the idea. It's very powerful, which is why Robotnik backstabs Knuckles and takes it for his own. Now understanding how much he messed up, Knuckles agrees to help us stop Robotnik by leading us to his newly rebuilt Death Egg. One epic fight later and we stop Robotnik. We return the Master Emerald to Knuckles, which causes Angel Island to float into the air.
I've been trying to fly with gems for years.
And that is the plot to Sonic 3 and Knuckles, and honestly, looking back, this is kind of the perfect story this game could tell. It's very simple and easy to follow, but has enough depth and world building to keep the player guessing as to what could happen next. The scene where we see Knuckles exiting the Master Emerald Shrine is the perfect hook for the halfway point in this game, as it gives the player more defined motivation for Knuckles without one line of dialogue. That's honestly really impressive. My only complaint is that I do wish Knuckles had played a bigger part in the game's climax. Instead, he just kind of waves us on being like, I've had one of a day. Now, that to me is what I like to see from a classic Sonic plot. If there's no massive chunks of dialogue or big cutscenes to be had, keep it simple, but not totally brain dead. There's a lot of really cool twists and turns that the plot goes through, especially for a game of this time, and it helps build out the world. It's really cool stuff. To me, it's like, honestly, the best of what a platformer story in this era could have been like. But man, if the game's story is hooking me this much and it's been this expanded upon, I can only imagine how much bigger and more expansive and different the gameplay must be. I mean, if it ain't broke, you know. Okay, let's get into this. The gameplay is largely kept the same as last time. You are Sonic, and you still go fast. What? Everything you can do before, you can do here. Run, jump, roll, and spin dash, but surprisingly enough, the super peel out from CD was removed entirely. I mean, I kind of understand that since the spin dash is back to how it worked in Sonic 2, but I don't know. I kind of wish they still kept it, maybe as a fun little option to get some speed and look cool. But there is a new move to this game called the Insta Shield. You jump, and when you're in the air, you hit the jump button again, which creates a little shield around you that gives you a little extra range for attack. Now, to the people who first used this thing,
This is worthless!
and those who saw its true use,
I mean, I could work with this.
okay, in all fairness, the Insta Shield does have its utilities. It's good for landing more precise hits on enemies and completely destroy certain boss fights. But I think in comparison to say something like the Spin Dash and how it added so much to the game you can't imagine playing without it, the Insta Shield doesn't really have that. It feels a bit too situational to use it and honestly has a bit too much of a learning curve to use effectively. But when you do, it is useful. It doesn't really detract from the game at all. And on that note, remember the shield item? That one power-up whose only purpose it was to give you an extra hit point? I've tried using a shield that way. I may have been lied to. This was always the lamest power-up in these games so far. Compared to the speed shoes and invincibility, the shield really just felt like an obligation to have so that players could hold on to their rings. In practice, it's useful, but it's easily the most boring power-up. And I think Sega realized that because when they were developing this game, they went, well, I guess it's time to juice this guy up. Shields are way more integral in this game compared to the others. Not only do they all look different with their own unique elemental effect, but they all give Sonic an additional power-up. The electric shield gives you a double jump and can attract rings to you from a distance, but they can't attract my affection. It also protects you from electric hazards, all 2 of them that appear in the game. The fire shield protects you from fire and lava while also giving you a mid-air dash. The shield is a ton of fun when you want to gain a lot of speed, and in a way seems like a precursor to the homing attack we get in later games. The bubble shield might seem a little lame at first, but its real potential is shown during water levels. It keeps you from drowning, which is already a godsend, and it also gives you a bounce attack, which if you time correctly, you can get a ton of airtime, and this can help you find a lot of secrets. These power-ups really don't get the credit they deserve. Their abilities help to open up the level design to a whole new degree. Whenever I get one, I get excited knowing that there are likely a lot of secrets for me to discover while using it. The best part is that these are never used for situational reasons. More often than not, they're placed there as a way of helping to give you a little extra push while exploring the levels. And you're gonna need it because the level design in Sonic 3 and Knuckles is easily the biggest and most expansive the series has gotten to this point. Maybe even still to this day. The levels are triple the size of what they were in the previous games, and it feels like they took the best aspects of Sonic 2 and CD's level design and crafted into these massive worlds to explore, and completely ignored Sonic 1's level design, which is 1/3 good and 2/3 there's just the right amount of speed and exploration in this game. It never feels like it's favoring one or the other, but rather giving you the ability to choose based on your playstyle. If you're more of the go fast and don't stop player, you can do that. When ignoring the secrets, you can actually blaze past most of the levels pretty quickly. If you're more on the explorative side of things, then oh my god, you have something to look forward to here. Not only are these levels big, but they are incredibly dense and filled to the brim with secrets, new power-ups, alternate pathways, and special rings, which I'll get to in a second. This game prides itself on how much it rewards your sense of curiosity, as there is always something to find when you go off the beaten pathway. The one thing you are likely to come across the most are the big rings that take you to the special stages, and my goodness, after the 3 levels of indifference I felt towards the previous special stages, this version was a breath of fresh air. Just collect the blue spheres and you get the Chaos Emerald. All you have to do is turn and jump. Nothing more, nothing less. In a way, these are conceptually the simplest special stages the series has gotten to this point, but I don't really care that much because these are actually fun. The difficulty curve is just right. None of these stages blindside you in the way the half-pipe or maze did. The layouts are fair, and the difficulty never goes overboard. If anything, I'd say the biggest challenge in the stage is probably going to be your nerves. You do progressively get faster the longer you stay in the stage, and sometimes the speed does sneak up on you, but the ones in this game are more than manageable to get through. And yes, I said this game because, believe it or not, when you lock Sonic and Knuckles onto other cartridges, you get some different effects, like being able to play as Knuckles in Sonic 2, which is pretty cool. But when you lock it onto literally any other Genesis game, you get access to a select screen that lets you play Blue Sphere. And when you lock on Sonic 1, you have access to over 134,217,728 completely different Blue Sphere levels.
I'm sorry, what?
That is absurd. There can't be that many levels, right? I mean, if you do the math on how many spheres take up a grid while still being able to complete the stage, yeah, I guess there probably would be that many, but come on, I have a feeling that for every completely original layout, there are probably thousands of near copies that just change the placement of one sphere. If that theory is wrong, I'd honestly be impressed. It's just insane to me that there's this much content in a side mode that exists in what's already a freaking massive game, and I'm not just talking about the level design here. Sonic 3 and Knuckles is one of the largest Genesis files ever produced, and on top of how many levels there are, the level of detail in each and every one of them is insane. Every stage is filled to the brim with unique colors and details, but unlike Sonic CD, 3 and Knuckles uses it in service of the world design. It's not just weird shapes and colors for the hell of it. There's a story to be told in how these levels are designed from an artistic standpoint. It's an actual world, and it's pretty damn gorgeous. Even Sonic's sprite got a bit of an upgrade and now has more detail and unique animations. That said, I still prefer his sprite from 2. I feel like his design was a bit cleaner and less busy while he moved. I still do like this sprite and how expressive they were able to make him though. All of this did come at a cost, however, 2 of them to be exact. This is probably the worst performing Sonic game of the classics. I say that because you are more likely to run into slowdown and lag in this one compared to any of the others. It's not the most common occurrence, but because of how intensive the graphics are in this game, it's pretty easy to spot when the game chugs, and being honest, it doesn't really seem like it holds a consistent 60 frames a second that well either. And the other cost is worse than you could ever imagine. One that made everyone run for their lives when they discovered what it would take to get this game made. Our wallets. Sonic 3 and Knuckles' file size was around 4 megabytes, which sounds laughable nowadays, but the maximum memory that a Genesis cartridge could hold was 4 megabytes. There were cards that held more space, but those cost a damn premium. Games from this era had already costed $60, and the large format versions would have been upwards of $80. Adjust for inflation, and that brings us up to around $155 nowadays. This was the main reason the game was split up. It simply would have cost too much to put the whole thing onto one cart, and considering how their deadline for the holiday was approaching, they had to release it in halves.
Remember that tidbit going forward.
I feel that with some reworking, they probably could have gotten this game running pretty well on a normal cartridge, but considering how much love and craft went into every little detail in the game, I'm glad that we were able to see it in its entirety. There are two big consequences to having the game split into two. The most notable difference you can see is in the order of the levels themselves. When splitting these games up, there had to be some rearrangements made to the level order, and you can actually see some of that come through in the final release. Each level ends with a transition from one zone onto the next, which is an awesome way to help the world feel more connected, but some transitions do make more sense than others. Like at the end of Carnival Night, you hop into a cannon and get launched off-screen into Ice Cap, which starts at the top of a very tall mountain during the day. I've been studying this phenomenon for years, and the math just doesn't add up. This is because Ice Cap was originally supposed to take place after Flying Battery. You can actually see remnants of this at the end of the stage when you see Sonic burst through the wall. That panel right there was originally supposed to be the snowboard he uses at the beginning of Ice Cap. So it would have gone something like this. The second, and probably the biggest change in splitting things up, was surprisingly the music. Sonic 3 had quite the collection of musicians on its team, a lot of which would stay with the series for years to come, but probably the most notable composer was Michael Jackson.
I'm sorry, what?
This is still one of the wildest things I think has ever happened in this franchise. To get who was easily the most famous person of all time and still one of the most insanely popular musicians in existence to work on a video game in 1993 no less, is insane to me. And good thing it was in 93 as well. Nothing else seemed to happen that year, damn it. Yeah, that really threw one hell of a wrench into things, as soon as the abuse allegations came out, Sega quickly cut ties with Jackson. The interesting thing is that this only really applies to Sonic 3 on its own, and not so much Sonic and Knuckles, as certain level themes really sound like something out of the Dangerous album and other songs by Jackson that hadn't been released yet. Sonic 3's solo credits theme sounds very similar to Stranger in Moscow, Launch Base has a voice clip that sounds remarkably like Jackson himself, and probably the most obvious one in my opinion is Carnival Night, as a section of the song sounds strikingly similar to Jam. This gets even more interesting when you notice how certain level tracks are just outright replaced when putting the two games together. When combined, the game uses the Act 1 boss track and Knuckles' theme from Sonic & Knuckles. In Sonic 3 on its own, the two themes I mentioned are not only completely different, but they share a drum beat that would eventually be used in Jackson's '95 release, Blood on the Dance Floor. The funny thing is, I see the moments where the developers were obviously trying to patch something up because it got moved around, and I find that weirdly endearing. Like, you can see the problem solving at bay here, and the fact that it pays off is really cool in my opinion. I haven't talked about the levels yet, haven't I? Angel Island, a pretty decent starter level to kick things off. Seems like any other green and tropical stage when suddenly, Jesus Robotnik, you had to burn the whole place down? Of all the places to do this, why would you have a gender reveal party here?
I guess it's a boy.
Hydro City, I'm surprised it took them this long to have a water level that's, fun. The pace remains fast, and you don't even stay in the water that long, and visually, it might be my favorite stage in the game. I love the way the accented purples are in the background, and mixed with Act 2's theme, This is probably my favorite water level in the classic series. Marble Garden is next up, and honestly, I keep forgetting the stage even exists. The way it looks is definitely cool, but I don't know, I guess I always found the stage to feel a little too meandering at points. It doesn't really seem like there's a clear goal when going through it. The second act is interesting in concept as the marble ruins collapse around you, but I really feel like it doesn't do anything that interesting with the concept. It really just adds a bunch of crusher obstacles. Next up, we have Carnival Night Zone, and man, we are 2 for 2 on levels I really don't care about. This stage can be fun and wacky, but my biggest problem with it is the length. I always either time out or just barely make it through the few seconds left on the clock, and in my personal opinion, none of the gimmicks in this stage really warrant the extra time spent here. Also, Act 2 has water in it, and I'm sorry, what carnival would I want to go to that's constantly flooded? It just seems like a pain in the ass to get around. Ice Cap has always been a weirdly cozy one for me. I don't know, the way it looks is so simple and yet beautiful, especially in Act 2 where you see all the glaciers in the background. And the music is very serene and calm, it almost sounds like it's from a different game. Not in a bad way by any means, it actually seems like a pretty decent pace changer. The level itself is alright, I don't think there's anything that memorable in it, but the way it presents itself is really nice. Launch base caps off the game if you're playing Sonic 3 on its own. Man, that's short. As a mid-game level, it feels pretty justified. It's certainly more difficult, but nothing too crazy. Weirdly enough, this is where you would get 2 bosses if you were playing Sonic 3 alone. I'm not gonna lie, I have no idea what this thing's supposed to be. It looks like Robotnik built it, realized it didn't attack, and then put a ball in it. I mean, I guess he could throw it. Yes! And the second boss is Big Arms, who has a bitchin' boss track and is also a complete bitch to hit. Seriously, this thing's a pain in the ass to land any decent damage on. And this is the only thing in the original trilogy that can actually hurt Supersonic. I guess that's how you defeat invincibility, just get swole arms. I guess it would be hard as a mid-game boss, but I don't know, I feel like it would act as a cool way to transition into the next part of the game. Speaking of which, we are now on to the Sonic and Knuckles portion of the game, starting with Mushroom Hill. This stage always felt so cool to me. The pace is fast and bouncy, but has some really neat gimmicks with these swings and these... I have no idea what they are, but they look cool. I also like this bit in Act 2 where you literally move through the seasons and you get a completely different look for the stage. Although I do have to question the logic behind this. Did we stay in this one stage for months, or is this area of the island literally split up by weather? My backyard has been like that for months, and it's kind of a problem.
You make no sense.
Flying Battery is up next, and it's weirdly more difficult than I think many would have expected it to be. There's a lot of crushers, spikes, and bottomless pits that tend to sneak up on you. Also, the Act 2 bosses kind of suck. You have this moment that's literally the Wing Fortress boss in Sonic 2, except you literally have to dodge and you'll win. It's a weird pace breaker for this point in the game, and this boss, I hate it. I hate this boss. No matter what character you play as, this fight is just finicky, and it doesn't help that grabbing your rings is nearly impossible here. Other than that, this stage itself is pretty fun, and I do love how fast you can go, and the music is really awesome. I just think that in context of this being the second level of Sonic and Knuckles on its own, it's a weird difficulty spike. In total, it's actually not that bad, but just on its own, it's a little weird. Sandopolis, you know, there are many things that us Sonic fans will just never agree on, but I think all of us can agree that this is easily the worst level in the game. Not so much Act 1, as it does keep up a decent pace and it does look really nice, but Act 2 is so damn boring. It's easily the longest level in the game by far, and it's only because every unique element in this stage moves at a snail's pace. You gotta slowly push these levers that open up these doors, but make sure you get through the doors on time, otherwise it closes and you have to open it all over again. You have to pop open this cork that releases all this sand that you must ride up to the very top, which takes forever. And you have to face these ghosts that get more powerful as the room gets darker, and that's just really rude. I mean, who died and made them ghosts? Lava Reef. You know, this level is one that I always found really interesting from a thematic standpoint. The level design is pretty good, it's a fairly standard lava level, but there is a lot of fun to be had when you use the fire shield. I mean, you can literally just walk on the lava, it's awesome. But then something happens when you go to Act 2. The entire look and feel of the level is different. The color palette is much cooler, it goes for more of a Crystal Cave aesthetic, and the music for Act 2 is way more calm than Act 1, it almost has a mystical kind of feel to it. That's another neat thing about this game. Instead of one music track per zone, each individual act gets its very own unique arrangement of their own theme. It's more so a change in tempo and arrangement, but each act has a track that fits with its design, like how Hydra City has a calm feel in the first act and a more intense feel in the second act. or how Carnival Night uses more traditional carnival sounding melodies in Act 1, where Act 2 has more of a beatbox feel. To go on a quick aside, there's something about the music in 3 Knuckles that always stood out to me. It's not my favorite OST in the series, but there is an underlying feeling throughout it all that just works in my opinion. I think it's that, 1, the stage tracks try their best to fit the location you're in closer than the other games, which in a lot of ways really helps to give the areas more atmosphere. And 2, the extra themes really go a long way in emphasizing the intensity of the situation. Robotnik's Act 2 boss theme might be my favorite boss track in the classic lineup, as it really finds that right balance of threatening but still catchy. This also works in the game's favor as there are a lot more cutscenes in this game than previously. There's even an entire level that's not really dedicated to having super interesting level design, but rather to just be a giant cutscene. Hidden Palace Zone is pretty much that, as it's just one giant hallway leading up to the boss fight with Knuckles. But it's a really cool bit of world building that we get to see before the end game. It really helps flesh out that Angel Island has this rich history to it that we may not know entirely what it's about, but we know it's there and it's something that we can discover more of. Also, Knuckles' boss fight is really easy and is made even funnier when you do this.
Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! Oh no!
After we beat him is when we get led into a chamber that houses the Master Emerald, as well as these pedestals for 7 other emeralds.
Neat.
So our next stage is kind of an interesting one. Sky Sanctuary. This does lean a little bit into the realm of a cutscene level, but there are a lot of cool gimmicks and obstacles for you to avoid, and I also just love the way it looks. It's really pretty. That, and I love the feeling of trying to climb up this tower to catch up with the Death Egg. Strangely though, it's only 1 act. I guess they were treating it more as a segue level rather than a new location. This is also the only stage to have 3 bosses, all of them being against the new foe, Mechasonic, and I'm guessing he didn't spend much time on his assignments, as the first 2 bosses are literally ones from Sonic 1 and 2. Then we have the final level in the game, the Death Egg, and this is easily my favorite final level in the classic series. The way this place looks mixed with the music just makes it feel so climactic. The challenge is just about right, it doesn't overstay its welcome, we can travel through onion rings, and the bosses feel the most threatening they've ever felt in the entire series. The final boss in Death Egg is pretty awesome as you're facing off against this giant robot, and it ends with a chase trying to catch up with the Master Emerald. But that's not where it actually ends, as this game actually has a true final level called the Doomsday Zone. The only way you can access it is by getting all the emeralds, as this is the first ever Supersonic boss fight in the series. Despite how it is kind of simple and easy, this is such a cool fight. The first phase has you guiding these missiles into the ship's nose. Wait, why does it have a nose? Does it need to breathe? It's in space, you don't need— And the final section is just ramming into the thing until it's destroyed. Everything about this finale just feels so right. The music is so epic and fast paced, and while the fight may be a bit more different than players would expect, it's still really easy to get a grasp on and understand. And the final cutscene of Sonic falling out of space with the Sky Sanctuary's theme playing in the background, and to have Tails come in at the last second with his plane and catch the 2 of them, it's just so satisfying. It really feels like they fixed the mistake from Sonic 2 where the good ending feels less emotionally fulfilling than the normal one. This is just perfect. And then you return the Master Emerald back to Angel Island and watch it float back up to the sky. This just feels so right. Well, that was a lot of game to cover, but it seems I got just about everything according to my notes. But you know what? I feel like being a bit risky. I'm gonna hold it with this hand now. I am really off today. So when playing Sonic 3 and Sonic and Knuckles separately, you get the Chaos Emeralds in both, and you can play as Supersonic in both. But when you combine them, not only do you get Supersonic, but if you get all 7 emeralds before Mushroom Hill, we get to collect another set called Super Emeralds. The way we get clued into this is actually kind of funny, because we enter Mushroom Hill and see a cutscene of Knuckles very worriedly looking around before closing the door, as if he's like, I hope no one finds my pornography. Going into this room leads us to a special ring that really wants to give me a seizure. You go into the seizure-inducing ring, and it leads you to that area in the Hidden Palace Zone where all the emeralds are taken away from you and placed on the pedestals. This is where we play the special stages from Sonic and Knuckles. Now, on paper, this might seem arbitrary, but the good thing is that you don't really lose out on any extra content if you decide not to get them. You only need the 7 Chaos Emeralds to unlock the Doomsday Zone and the true final boss. However, getting the Super Emeralds isn't just for bragging rights, you do actually get something for going the extra distance to get them. If you do get all of them, you don't get Supersonic back, but instead you get the next freaking level, Hypersonic. Okay, in all seriousness, I'm gonna give a warning that this mode has a lot of flashing colors and lights. It can be pretty intense on the eyes and is very likely to trigger those with epilepsy. I guess Sega didn't get the idea that flashing lights would hurt the eyes because they were too busy hurting my soul. So if you want to skip ahead, go to this time and you should be good. Thank you. Hypersonic is kind of ridiculous. You still get the extra speed and jump height, but now you can't drown, and you also get this dash ability that admittedly is really hard on the eyes. Like, Jesus Christ, we get it, you're cool. This not only dashes in whatever direction you want, it also acts as a screen nuke.
I wish I could screen nuke.
Again, much like the previous games, these are sort of optional. You don't need them to fight the final boss, all you need are the Chaos Emeralds. But if you do get them all, you transform into Hypersonic and Doomsday Zone, which is honestly pretty badass, and you get an additional cutscene during the ending where Knuckles stands with the Master Emerald and smiles as he watches us take off. The fact they included something even as simple as a cutscene that puts a good end cap to this character just because you went the extra distance and got everything is really something special in my opinion. It's those little details and extra craft that I feel make Sonic 3 and Knuckles so memorable. It has this certain grandness and gravitas to it all. And that's only when you're playing as Sonic. Yeah, there is shockingly more to talk about here, as you can also play as both Tails and Knuckles for their own separate campaigns. Tails is kind of the easy mode, since his flight really makes all the obstacles a non-issue, but his fight in Marble Garden is terrible. When you play as Sonic, all you have to do is jump into him, that's it. Tails has this thing where if you touch any enemy with your tails while flying, it'll do damage. That is the only way to beat him, and it's just so stupid. I really don't think they thought this fight all the way through with Tails. But other than that, Tails' journey is pretty simple, all things considered. You don't get a super form when you collect all the Chaos Emeralds, which is a little strange, but you do get one for collecting all the Super Emeralds, and this is absolutely absurd. I get all the properties of being super while being able to fly, and I have an army of birds at my disposal. This is peak existence. I can't top this. That's it. Goodbye. Knuckles' story is actually kind of interesting as it takes place after the events of the main game. I guess he's on cleanup duty, and I wouldn't want to clean up after Sonic.
He leaves such a mess.
His playthrough is also different since he can glide and climb walls, which definitely makes his story more explorative. You even get access to completely exclusive areas, which is really cool, and also totally butchers the length of some stages. Carnival Night normally took me 10 minutes with Sonic, and it's barely 2 with Knuckles. Also, there's weirdly no boss fight in Carnival Night Act 2, and I never understood that. Even though these changes sound like they streamline the experience, Knuckles almost feels like the game's hard mode. His speed takes a little longer to get going, and his jump height is noticeably shorter than Sonic and Tails. The exclusive areas you go through can sometimes be more difficult, like Launch Base Act 2. You actually go through the areas of construction here, which is pretty cool from a story perspective, but it does feel more difficult than Sonic's run. Also, strangely enough, when you play as Knuckles, you actually fight Big Arms at the end of Launch Base, which I still don't understand why only he fights him. I guess the Egg Robo just found him lying around and decided to use it. Which reminds me, you don't actually fight Robotnik in the story, you just fight one of his robots. Except for Flying Battery. I know they just forgot to swap out his sprite, but I like to think Robotnik just wanted to come in and try again. You can get both sets of emeralds again, and thankfully Knuckles does get both a super and hyper form. Knowing this, I'd say Tails got gypped, but he got a bird army, okay? I think that's sufficient. The biggest difference in Knuckles' playthrough is actually the ending. You don't go to the Death Egg at all, since it's destroyed. Instead, you have a battle in Sky Sanctuary against Mechasonic. Yeah, a cool detail you're likely to miss is that when you defeat him in Sonic's story, he doesn't actually explode, but rather deactivates. And now I guess Mechasonic is just trying to finish off the mission, as he uses the power of the Master Emerald to give him his own super form. That's honestly pretty cool. The fight isn't terribly hard, but it can catch you off guard, but I love the arena. Seeing Angel Island slowly fall out of the sky while these two fight makes for a pretty thrilling climax to this campaign. After you defeat him, you grab the Master Emerald and once again return it back to the island. Not without a little last minute help by Sonic. Why is he there? Who cares? They're friends now. And that is all of Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Knuckles.
I forgot how much was in this game. It is still baffling to me that they were able to make a game, a platformer even, that was this grand and massive. From the big levels to the big story to the multiple characters that have their own unique part of the game to go through. The fact that on top of all of this, there's even a multiplayer mode. It's just racing, but they made new level themes and music for these stages in a mode that most people don't normally play in a Sonic game. The polish and detail and craft and everything that is ambitious about this game is truly something to be admired. There's a reason why this is held as the gold standard, the high point of Sonic, of 2D Sonic, basically all of Sonic. Everyone sees this as the main thing to live up to. So why do I not like it quite as much as everyone else?
This fact was the bitterest pill for me to swallow. Back when I talked about this game in 2015, I was absolutely in the camp that not only was this the best classic Sonic game, but it was by far my favorite. And while I still feel it is the best made and designed classic Sonic game, it's not my favorite anymore. I pondered this for a while, and I think I found out why when I thought about when I played it. I played this almost immediately after playing 2, and despite loving everything this game has to offer, I feel it's more draining to get through. Sonic 2's pace was so tight and refined. There was never a slow moment that felt out of place or a level that massively overstayed its welcome. Okay, almost. 3 and Knuckles' pace feels like it drags a bit more than I would like it to. Maybe it's because the bigger levels mean I spend more time in them. Maybe it's because I feel I have to look everywhere for a special ring, which can feel a bit meanderish after a while. Maybe it's the larger amount of stages or added story elements. I don't really know what it is, but I feel like this game is almost more of a chore to get through, at least compared to 2, and I don't know if this is a controversial opinion or not, but we live in a world where Sonic Mania exists, and despite the extremely valid criticism that there isn't enough original material, that to me is the gold standard of how a Sonic game should be paced. It's about as long as 3 and Knuckles, but everything feels very concise and fluent. There's not an ounce of fat anywhere on this game. While with 3 and Knuckles, I feel like there's a lot I have to kind of just nudge my way through in order to get to the really fun stuff.
And I don't want to make it sound like I dislike Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Far from it. I would much rather play it over the first game or CD. Hell, a lot of the modern stuff doesn't even hold a candle to this one. I just think I'm personally probably in the camp that feels that Sonic 3 and Knuckles is far more impressive and influential than it being 100% enjoyable for me personally. Does that make sense? You know how like you see that film debate about how like one film is clearly like better made or like, well, better made, that's a different argument, but like more influential in its own way, it has a lot more to say, but people would still rather watch something that's just more enjoyable. That's kind of how this one feels to me. I don't know if that's like an apt comparison, but do you see what I mean? I feel like I will always have an immense amount of respect for Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Nothing will ever take that away from it. But I would much rather play Sonic 2 or Mania over it, just because I find it more enjoyable. I just find both of them, just in general, are a lot tighter and a lot more fun. But here's the crazy thing. Sonic 3 and Knuckles, I still like it!
I will never take away what this game has done for not just the series, but gaming in general. This was one of the first big leaps in evolving the platforming genre. It became more than just saving the princess or defeating aliens, or hell, even defeating evil scientists. It became about seeing a new and creative world that felt real. Even if it's fictional, that doesn't matter because the feeling you get from it is so genuine. It has so much care and detail put behind it. 3 and Knuckles feels like one of those rare cases where the passion and quality are on completely equal ground. There is not 1 ounce of corporate cynicism or creator indifference anywhere in this. Honestly, the game's biggest flaw is the fact that it was split up to begin with. I feel that presenting the game in this method really hurt its chances of being as big a runaway success as the first 2 games. That because of the whole Michael Jackson thing, this game rarely gets a re-release, especially after Jackson's death. It's still a crime in my eyes that this game didn't get the same treatment 1, 2, and CD did on mobile. There was a build in development, but it just went away, and that really sucks. Although I am happy we are getting something along the lines of that remake in Sonic Origins. I haven't played it yet, so I'll hold judgment for now. All I can really hope for is that they just don't pull a Colors Ultimate on us. Another time. Final note, play this game, it's great. Play Sonic 2, it's great. Play the remakes of Sonic 1 and CD, those versions are great. All in all, just give these games a shot. They are not everyone's cup of tea, and I absolutely understand that. But I feel this lineup has such a unique voice that really hasn't been replicated in gaming since. Hell, even to this day, this franchise still has problems doing that. I've never really been one for the whole modern Sonic versus classic Sonic debate. I feel like it's just a matter of what your preference is, but playing these games again has really opened my eyes to the kind of quality you can get from this series just with some people who have a lot of passion. That's all it takes, just a little bit of passion and people who absolutely believe it will work. Remember when the Sonic movie was gonna be bad? Hey, guess what? It wasn't, and it got a sequel, and it was pretty damn good. Like, that shouldn't have happened, but because the people who made it really cared about making it as good as it was, it succeeded. It's that simple. And I guess that is why there's a bit of a bias towards the classic games rather than any other era of this series. There was that balance of quality and passion behind it. While you do get some games that are way more quality than passion or passion than quality, this era really found that balance and it took full advantage of it. So in that case, give it a try. I think this is a series that everyone can really get something out of.
I gotta say, I'm really glad I took a look at these games again. I feel like my perspective on them has changed a fair bit over the years, but I don't know. I will always appreciate what they've done for me. Like, they were some of the first bits of retro gaming I ever got. They were the reason I got into retro gaming in the first place, the reason I got into collecting games in general. And because of that, I'm able to talk about games as much as I want, make videos about games, like just make any kind of medium I want talking about games. I know it sounds a bit hyperbolic, but it really wouldn't have been a thing without these games. At least for me personally, like this was my gateway drug into gaming. Damn you got me high on games. But like, I don't know, like I will always appreciate what these games have done for me, and they will always hold a special place in my heart. Despite my disagreements with like how the series has kind of gone at this point, with exception to the films, I don't know. I feel like they'll always be there. I can always go back to them as a source of like not only comfort but also like knowing that like I can still push through things and still just like, even like if something like is a bit tired or like if I want to talk about something again, I'll be okay talking about it, because if these games have shown anything, my opinion will change, but I'll still respect them. And I feel that's going to be the case for any kind of game I talk about. That was weirdly emotional. Well, on that note, if I ever decide to look at these games again in the future, I guess I should give my future self a few pointers. Get good, don't be a bitch, live long and prosper, learn how to schedule shit, take your time with Knuckles, he can be a bit much at times, and if there's one thing Sonic 3 Knuckles has taught me, it's that half of something is never quite as good as the full thing.